Hello, thanks so much for joining us on the couch for the best from the InFocus archives. I'm Ken Kingston.
And I'm Dora Amamuya. Today we're going to talk about church worship. It's not just about music, Kent. And we'll hear from two different doctors on topics that we don't really like talking about, but we need to be aware of.
Why don't we start on a more positive note with this segment on kids' self-esteem with Trafford Fisher.
Well, if your kids are struggling with self-esteem, Traff Fisher is here and he might have some hot tips for you. Traff.
How are you, Danny?
Great topic today.
Good. Yeah. Kids need to be built up and feel good.
They do.
The research is clear, Isabel, Danny. Kids who have a solid sense of self do better at school, they do better in relationships, they just manage life better. So, there it is. We've got to build kids' self-esteem,
Such
right?
an important foundation.
Yeah. Number one, build on their strengths.
Yeah.
So, look, my mind goes to a family, Danielle, that used to live opposite us in another place. And sadly, I used to worry because they had, I think their two boys were 10 or 12, and Mum would come out and hop in the car, and seriously, she'd cane these little guys. She'd just give them curry, really call them horrible names. What have you forgotten now? And I always worried about it. I'd love to get these kids and say, hey, what do you do well? Let's talk about that. Yeah, so we need to build their strength.
What about the other side of that, Trafford? Not so much the put downs and the emotional abuse. Parents that seem to mollycoddle their kids, doing too much for them.
Doing too much for, well, I think you're right. I think that's right. And we let the kids realistically have some responsibilities for them that suit their level. Because we've got to remember, it's not a little kid with an adult brain, right?
That's
This is growing brain. And the prefrontal cortex, which is the CEO of your brain, finally is fully developed at 25. Yeah. So we've got this journey that we take with the kids. So let's set some responsibilities for them that are fair at their age. I think we need to, along with that, get kids, build courage to accept when they don't do so well. I know of a family where the girl, particularly, as soon as she does something wrong, shit really upsets her. She gets almost sick over this fact that she hasn't, she's failed. Yeah, and I think,
the future perfectionist.
It's a worry. We've got kids. It's okay. Mistakes okay. And if we can model as parents, oh man, I blew it. It's cool. Yeah. It's a mistake.
Chill out.
Yeah, we can get over this. So we need to celebrate small victories for the kids too. If they do something good, that was fabulous, and celebrate the good time.
Right. What else? John?
Let them help you set goals for them. Right. So we guide them. What do you want to achieve today? What do you want to achieve by the end of the week? How many books would you like to read? We set goals and then we help them stick to them.
And that's a great point because they're going to be also more interested in
they
things and feel that sense of achievement.
Oh, this is something I have to do. Mum's given it to me.
Fantastic.
I've set the goal. Mum's helped me a bit, but it makes it look as if I've set
done it.
I think what we can do for the kids, especially our children that can read, starting to read, leave little notes of appreciation in their lunchbox. It's embarrassing at school, under their pillow.
Fantastic.
Let them know, hey, you are my number one, you're my special kid. So often what we do, I think, is we let our kids know, hey, you are terrific when you've done something. Oh, you've tidied your room, how terrific. I think what kids need is, you are terrific, period. Yeah. It's not attached to...
This is about you, not
This is not about what you've done. You are terrific. I think the final thing we need to remember, compare them only with themselves. Yeah. What about Johnny down the road, or what about your bigger brother? No, compare them with themselves. You have improved wonderfully this week. I think if we can do those, we're going to make a journey towards getting kids feeling good.
I tell you what, I'm going to take some of those tips home with my own kids. Just wonderful. Thanks for being with us, Traff.
Pleasure.
There were some really good tips there. Yeah. Does it fit in with your experience of parenting, Ken?
Yeah, I think so. You've really got to watch kids like a hawk. You've got to try to catch them out doing the right thing. You know what I mean? I think, honestly, it's just as important as dealing with them when they do the wrong thing.
Oh, you know what? I think that's an awesome way of looking at it. And we should probably do the right thing now and take an ad break. See you in a moment. Hi, welcome back. Now, we've seen some pretty awesome people on the InFocus program who have dedicated their lives to making a difference for some of the world's most disadvantaged people. And Nepali women's health specialist, Dr. Angela Basnet, is no exception.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Well, it's no secret that women all over the world have issues, but joining me today is Dr. Angela Basnet from Khosan in Nepal. How are you, Angela?
Namaste, and it's great to be here. Thank you.
Great to have you with us. Now, Angela, your organisation works in partnership with Asian Aid Australia. Tell us why you're here in Australia at the moment.
So I've been here for about 3 weeks, and we've been all around Australia, and we are talking about women's health, which is a major issue in our country. So yeah, for the last 3 weeks, that's what I've been doing.
Okay. Now, when we say women's issues, we're talking about things like uterine prolapse and a number of other issues. Why are those issues more prevalent in Nepal opposed to Australia?
Our country, it's a very conservative country, and it's a male-dominated society. A huge amount of population, they live under poverty line, and the literacy rate is very low. So among all these problems, I think women and children, they are the population that get affected the most. And we are talking about uterine prolapse, and it's one problem that women don't talk about. So the problem is there and it cannot come out. So it's a huge issue in our part of the world.
Yeah. When we talk about uterine prolapse and we're talking about, you know, Nepal and the poverty, I'd imagine not being able to have the money to be able to fix that issue, living in impoverished circumstances. What does that look like for a Nepalese woman to have a uterine prolapse and then have to go about everyday life? What kind of things affect that?
Uterine prolapse, I'll just let you know what uterine prolapse is. It's actually the downward descent of the uterus. So the uterus falls down, and then there are various degrees of uterine prolapse. So depending on the degree, there is discomfort, then ulcer, there is difficulty in passing urine and defecating. So it's not a life-threatening condition. And we've had instances where the ladies have hidden the disease and not talked about it for 30, 40 or even 50 years before they talk to us for the first time.
Does it affect their ability to have children, to have relationships with their husbands, those kinds of things?
Yeah, it does affect the physical relationship they have with their husbands. They can have babies even after they have uterine prolapse. So there are ladies who've been suffering with uterine prolapse, they have babies, and after the baby is born, they have the prolapse again.
How easy is that to fix?
It's a very simple procedure, and very simple things can prevent it, and a very simple procedure can fix it. The only thing is the ladies need to come out and let us know they are suffering from the problem.
Okay. So how is it that you encourage that vulnerability? Culturally, that's something that's very sensitive for them.
It is.
How do you manage that?
So Khosan, we basically focus on 3 aspects of the disease. So our main focus now is on the awareness creation. So we just go out in the village and then talk to everyone about uterine prolapse. So we go to the schools and we educate the young children, who will be the parents in the future, especially the young girls. And early marriage, child marriage is very prevalent in our country. About 40% of the girls, they get married before the age of 18. 90% of the marriages are arranged marriage, so they don't get to choose their husbands. So we try to explain to them that early marriage is harmful and the harmful effect on their body physically, as well as, they are not mentally prepared to start a family. And we talk to them about the safe delivery, the importance of antenatal checkup, and the percentage of institutional delivery is very low. So we have only 35% of the ladies who go and actually get an institutional delivery. So
wow,
that's again something we try to encourage them. And the government has done a lot on this. Like they even give ladies incentives when they come to the hospital to deliver. So they get 500 to 1,500 rupees when they come to deliver.
Okay, so they get some financial assistance to be able to get the help that they need.
Yeah. and then we talk to them about the safety measures that should be taken after delivery, because that's one of the major causes of uterine prolapse. So they resume their work immediately after delivery. So we tell them at least 6 weeks rest is required after delivery and not to carry the heavy loads right after delivery.
What about psychologically and emotionally? I mean, we live in a culture here in Australia where we can freely access the medical help that we need. There are a lot of education programs that happen, you know, even within schools or media campaigns, and we can go and speak with a counsellor or a women's health professional.
So it's very difficult for the ladies because they can't talk even to their sisters or their mother or their husbands, you know.
That must be incredibly isolating.
Yeah,
Angela,
so they are isolated. And the other thing that happens in the family is the husband gets another wife. So they live in the in-laws with the husband in the in-laws place, but then the husband leaves them off and goes away with another lady. So that's another burden that bear with them. Yeah.
Do you sense an incredible sadness among those women?
They are very sad, and they are the quality of their life is decreased. And then in Nepal, it's a farming. Most of the population, they are farmers. So the ladies, they are called into each other farms to help each other, and that's how they earn their wages. So once they have prolapse, it's considered an outcast. So they are not called in public places, in the festivals. You know, they are not invited. So they are pretty isolated, and the worst is they can't talk about it with anybody.
That must be extremely difficult, and I'm sure difficult for you, seeing the women in your culture and I guess having that greater awareness of what can be done and that there is help, and yet seeing these women that are so broken. You're here, Angela, for the last 3 weeks and for a little time yet to be able to speak in the universities and have those opportunities to raise awareness within Australia. What can our viewers and what can our country do to help the women of Nepal?
So we've been receiving help from AsianAid Australia for the last 15 years for the health clinics that we conduct, because the ladies don't come to the clinic in town, you know, they don't come to a doctor. We have to go out to their villages, to their doorsteps to talk to them and then see if they are suffering. So it does require money. So we've been receiving a very good financial help from AsianAid Australia for the last 15 years.
That's great.
And we are very grateful for that. But our other intention of visiting other countries is to have a one voice for this problem. You know, we want to make everyone aware, because we've been talking in many places and they don't know about the problem. So we just want to let everyone know and have one voice so that we can stand for these women who are suffering alone.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Angela, for being with us today and for sharing. I pray that this one voice that you're wanting to project is projected through this interview and the people that are viewing from home. If you can support AsianAid and the work of Dr. Angela, please do so. The number is right there on your screen. Angela, thanks for being with us. All the best for the rest of your work and your advocacy here in Australia.
Thank you.
Wow, a fantastic lady. You know, Dora, someone like that, you know, she could easily migrate to Australia and earn a heck of a lot more money here, you know, than by staying where she is. But I really admire the fact that she's stuck by her people, she's stuck by her country. It's really impressive.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah. Hey, time for an ad break now. We'll be back in just a second.
Father, I can't connect the dots through the little that I understand. What words can I say to reach you? How can I know that you are there, listening, hearing, caring? My words are broken, weak, and powerless. But I know your power is limitless. What can I say?
Okay, we're going to have a look now at the Health in Focus segment on an issue that's not as serious as uterine prolapse, but it's still something a lot of people don't like talking about.
Yep, corns and calluses. Let's take a look.
How you doing, Doc?
I'm going very well indeed, and it's lovely being here, Danielle, and hi there to all my friends out there, wherever you happen to be in the house. and welcome to my little segment of the show. Love being here. Love all those people out there. They're so nice, aren't they?
They are.
Send us
They're
nice
gorgeous.
emails.
They keep our ratings up, which is awesome.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, Doc, today we're talking about feet and in particular corns and calluses. Fill us in.
Absolutely. Corns and calluses. And I'll bet that 50% of the people listening today have corns or calluses, the same thing, mainly on their feet, mainly on their little toe or where the big toe rubs on the shoe, or anywhere else where there's constant friction, constant rubbing. Some get them on their hands too, I don't know why, but if there's any friction, the tissue overlying that area thickens to protect the underlying tissue. That's the basic nature's reaction to irritation. Okay. Now, the most common cause, would you believe it, is that. We all have shoes, most of us do anyhow, don't get them with songs. Rub, 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 usually down here or down there. Yeah. And the common old shoe, because it's ill-fitting, so please wear shoes that fit well. But also, you ideally wear a nice thick pair of socks. That is, socks. Not bad, is it? I bought it.
They're pretty long. They're almost
yeah.
stocking stock.
Sale price.
They keep your legs warm.
And it's a nice thick one, and that sort of pads the area. That's a good idea also. Nice and simple. Don't do much about it.
All right. Now, that's good for prevention, but what happens if you've already got corns and calluses?
Yeah, well, that's prevention plus treatment. Now, if you do have one, the simplest of the lot is to get an old pumice stone. Remember that, probably before your time.
No,
you can get it from a health food shop or a
and
chemist, and rub the skin off this hard, horny corn callus. Yeah. Rub it off gently, and then from the chemist you can buy these strips, and they are a bit like Band-Aids, but inside the active ingredient is stuff called salicylic acid, and it's fairly mild. So pumice stone first, pare it down, and then put that on and change every day. And wear your socks, make sure the shoes fit, and within about a week or 10 days, the whole thing heals itself. Wow. Nature's a great doctor.
That's quite
nice and
fast,
cheap.
really, isn't it?
Don't need to see the doctor nor the chemist. Costs you nothing, virtually.
Sounds like great advice, Doc.
How are your cords?
No, I don't have any.
Oh, of course you're
wearing
thongs.
Yeah. No, I don't have them, praise the Lord. But
so many people do. And it's so easy,
painful.
To prevent.
Yep.
And treat for nothing.
Very good. So there you go, guys. Get yourself a good pair of socks and well-fitting shoes. And if you need to, some special strips to get rid of them. Thanks for being with us, Doc.
Great being here, and I'll be back soon. Bye.
Well, there you go. But, I know what my dad would say. He'd say, hey, give us your foot, Dora. I've got an angle grinder in the shed. That'll sort it out.
That is so gross. No, thanks. Not that I have any corns or calluses.
Oh, of course. Hey, it's time for an ad break now. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
Planning your future can be a daunting task. What you want to do, who you want to be, and the road ahead can often be unpredictable. No one really knows what the future holds. Avondale. It's education designed for life.
Hi, welcome back. Now, our final segment today is an interview that you did, Kent, with a worship pastor from New York.
Yeah, I really wasn't quite sure exactly what a worship pastor was before this interview, so I'm glad I got the opportunity to meet him. Well, how does your church go with worship? It's certainly been an area of conflict in a lot of churches, but also, I guess, a source of great comfort and great inspiration. And here to talk to us about worship this morning is Nicholas Zork. How are you, Nick?
Good.
So Zork, that's an interesting surname. Does that put you from another planet or something? Or?
Yeah. I don't like to talk about it too much. It's a little spooky, but no. I think my great-grandparents, or even the generation before, were immigrants to the U.S., and I'm sure it was a longer name that they shortened, so there's not a lot of us around. But...
So probably from Eastern Europe or Germany or something like that. Well, there you go. Well, it's a great name, Nicholas Zork.
Thanks.
Good to have a name with a Z in it, I reckon.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I don't mind having an odd name.
So Nicholas, you're working in New York, helping out an Adventist church there in the area of worship. Most churches manage to organise, worship sort of, themselves without paying someone. What extra value do you add to the worship experience at that church in Manhattan?
Well, yeah, no, that's a good question. So, sometimes I wonder what extra value I add, because we have so many great folks in the church, and they were sort of very successfully, leading the worship ministry before I got there. But one of the things that we do is we just try to make the worship service a space and time, a community gathering where people can connect with one another, where people have the opportunity to connect possibly with God. For us, that's our primary time when we're all gathered together as a church community, and it's one of the primary times when our doors are open and we welcome everyone. So for us, really, it's an opportunity to meet one another and to meet God. There's a great line I read in a book. It said that worship is not about meaning so much as it is about meeting one another, meeting God.
Okay, not about meaning so much as meeting. Wow,
yeah, there's plenty of meaning too. But we get so, I think, focused sometimes on meaning, about what we're saying, what we're trying to say, that we forget to really meet one another in the diversity that we are, and learn from one another. And that in that openness to one another, I think we can be open to God and to learning from God as well. So
now, often, Nick, when we talk about worship, we use it as a synonym for music. You know, we say, oh, the worship leader this week is such and such. By that we mean this person is leading out in a couple of songs. But the definition of worship is much bigger, isn't it?
Yeah, I think ultimately worship is an embodied attitude. All the words for worship in the Bible are, things that we do, kneeling, bowing. They're things that we do with our bodies that connote a certain attitude. And I think when we do that together, it's we're embodying an attitude of recognizing God's worth, also an attitude of openness unto God.
Because the worship comes from the word worth, doesn't it?
Yeah, so ascribing worth is part of it. But I also think that that comes really from worship, the Old English word. But the word, the main Hebrew word, is a word that really just means to lie down prostrate. Now, we don't do that a lot in my church. That's done in some churches. But I think it's that kind of embodied attitude of humility, of honoring God, of humble service.
So it's all different ways to say, God, you are worthy. God, you are to be praised. Is that what worship is about? Essentially, different ways of communicating that to God?
Yeah,
or am I oversimplifying?
No, I think it is that. I think it's also it's an entire orientation. It's a different way of being in the world. And when we gather together, we can honoring God, orienting ourselves toward God. God, the one who's holy, the one who is the ultimate other. I think that also changes the way that we live toward all the others around us. So I think worship is really a way of life. It's a different way of being in the world as a community in which we're orientated not toward ourselves, but toward God. And in being oriented toward God, we're also oriented toward God's priorities, which is everyone in this world.
Okay, so Nick, you've come halfway around the world to Australia for the Manifest Festival to talk about worship. So, I mean, most of us who go to church, most weeks know or think we know what worship looks like. What are you offering here in Australia, or how are you challenging people at that Manifest Festival to think about worship differently, to practice worship differently? Like, what are you bringing to the table?
Well, I think oftentimes we think in terms of worship as being a presentation. We think from the perspective of those of us who are up front anyway, and who are planning, think of worship from the perspective of the platform.
A performance, essentially.
Right, yeah. Exactly. And I really want to encourage folks, and I try to encourage myself and our team back in New York, to think from the perspective of the pew, to think from the perspective of the one who's gathered, because really it is a participatory event first and foremost. And it's a participatory event in which we're becoming immersed in a story that's bigger than all of us, but a story that also involves all of us. So it's a worship really is, I think, this time where we are weaving sort of all of our human stories as individuals, as a community, as a world, into a divine story of redemption through Christ. And it's in that kind of that interweaving, that entering into that narrative, that I think we can find hope and healing. It can bring people coming from different places together as we recognize that we're all part of one story. So I think, but if we don't think about how we are participating and how we're facilitating participation, it can just be a presentation.
Well, give me some practical examples, Nicholas. I mean, okay, because what you're saying sounds good sort of in theory, But what does participatory worship actually look like?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would just, as a musician, I would break it down even sometimes to very specific aesthetic things. You know, there are ways that I sing if I'm just giving a concert. And I sing, you know, in churches, but, you know, most of the time, actually, I sing in music venues and theaters and things outside of church. And if I'm singing and people are meant to listen, I sing in a certain way. I sing in keys that are good for my voice. I play in ways that might be, well, I'm hoping that they're interesting to listen to, maybe surprising rhythms. Maybe,
rather than easy to sing along with.
Right, maybe it's unpredictable in some way. I think if participation is the goal, it's just a different set of aesthetic values. You know, we try to choose songs and keys that everyone can sing. We try to sing a version of a song that is rhythmically predictable. Yeah, there's still surprises, but we don't want to lose folks.
Yeah, that's music, but we've just been talking about how worship is much larger than music. How do we make other aspects of the church service more participatory? The prayer, what else?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is something. First of all, I'll tell you what we don't do at our church every week. We don't change the order of service drastically every week.
Okay.
Because that makes for a very interesting program. But if every week everything's all mixed up, it becomes very difficult to participate. And we like to involve a lot of different folks in leading out, in praying, in reading scriptures.
So there's a predictability to it.
Yeah, there's sort of a rhythm that people have learned so that they can easily jump in and tell a story, jump in and read a scripture, jump in and offer a prayer, because they know where they're at. We're not sort of, if you change everything, it makes it very hard to involve a lot of people. And we like to involve as many people as possible in leading out from up front. But also, we like to create space in the service when actually nothing's happening much on the platform. You know, sometimes we will sing a simple refrain and then just leave a space of silence.
Wow, time to listen, yeah.
Yeah, where people can listen, where people can bring their own prayers, where we sort of recognize that the essential thing that happens when we gather isn't what's happening into a microphone. The essential thing that happens is what's happening as a community gathered in the presence of God.
And what's happening in people's hearts, I guess.
Yeah, and you have to, if we don't create space for that, then the message that we're sending non-verbally is that, in fact, what matters most is what's happening on the platform, what's happening in the mic.
Wow. Oh, it's a real change in perspective. Thanks so much for your time today, Nicholas. And I understand you have a website if people want to follow what you're doing?
Just my name, nicholaszork.com, and I try to post the things I'm doing up there, the music that I do in churches and the music that I do in other community venues. So, yeah.
Great. All right.
It's a good place to find me.
We'll check that out, nicholaszork.com.
It's so easy to fall into a rut with church worship, isn't it, Ken?
Totally.
Like just going through the motions and doing it like we've always done it.
Oh, yeah. I'm really glad that there are people around like Nicholas Zork.
Yeah.
You know, they push us to expand our horizons and get creative, basically.
Yeah, and I think God deserves our best.
Oh, you got that right. Well, that's it for InFocus Recouched this week. Thanks for your company.
God bless. We'll see you next time.